Welcome back, everyone, to part 2 of lecture number 5. In the previous videos, we were talking about the devastating effects of the transatlantic slave trade on many African civilizations, and now we're getting a little more specific and talking about the Kingdom of Congo. This process really begins in earnest under a particular leader, Menakongo Nzinga Mbebe, during the 16th century. He will be the one that will first begin to negotiate with the Portuguese. Mbeba was also crucial in helping to convert many people to Christianity in the country of Congo. In 1491, both he and his father were baptized by Portuguese priests, and at that time they also assumed Christian names. His was King Alfonso I. He will work out an arrangement granting rights to Portuguese subjects who moved into the Kingdom of Congo, and he also worked out an arrangement to supply slaves to Portuguese traders, taking them to the Americas. With the money made from the trade in humans, Afonso rebuilt the kingdom's capital. He made educational efforts to encourage literacy through the kingdom and helped to promote the Roman Catholic Church in the region. Over time, however, after discovering that Portuguese merchants were illegally purchasing enslaved persons, not just war captives, which was the tradition, and also exporting larger numbers of people than they were given permission to do so, Afonso began to become gravely concerned for the future of his people. He began several attempts, unsuccessful attempts, to restrict Portuguese activities in his kingdom. In other words, he begins to realize that the people that he has let in and brought in are beginning to abuse the system, and that his population was paying for that. He eloquently expressed his concerns over these illegal and damaging activities in a letter that he wrote to the King of Portugal in 1526. You can see the contents of that here. The damage there, the merchants daily seize our subjects and cause them to be sold. Their corruption and licentiousness is so great, right, that our country is being utterly depopulated. The Portuguese were not going to allow this person to interfere with their money-making activities. There will be at least one assassination attempt against him during his life. He will survive that, but after his death, what the Portuguese will do is intercede in the next king coming to the throne, and they will make sure that successive leaders of this kingdom will do their bidding without any sort of criticism. And then, of course, as later European powers start to pour in the 19th century, the French and the Belgians, they too will basically buy off political leadership so that they can have a free hand to control the population and, in many cases, abuse the population as they see fit. Turning now to a population along the eastern coast of Africa, the so-called Swahili States, which were very prominent in international trade as early as 1000 to 1200 CE. With advances in the construction of ocean-going vessels and with the discovery that sailors could use the seasonal winds known as monsoons to sail back and forth across the Indian Ocean, the Swahili states are going to grow quite wealthy and cosmopolitan by controlling trade from the east coast of Africa to the Indian subcontinent. Their chief trade was in goods like ivory, sandalwood, ebony, and gold, as well as importing textiles and spices from the Far East. They will also trade extensively with the Arabian Peninsula to the north of them, and in fact this is how Islam will make its way into West Africa, and it will help to even shape the language of the Swahili states. Their language will be a cross between about 35% Arabic and the rest Bantu, a native African language. Now, if you'll notice, I have here on the slide the term city-state. The Swahili states were not unified. This is not one centralized empire run by an emperor. Instead, each of these states, Mogadishu, Kilwa, Mombasa, each of them are self-contained units. They are cities that acted like independent states or independent countries, meaning that each of these cities was fiercely independent of their neighbors. While they shared, in some cases, trade, they shared, a common ethnicity in some cases or language, they were not politically unified or militarily unified. The reason why I'm pointing this out is that when Europeans began landing in the Swahili city-states during the 16th century, specifically the Portuguese, when the Portuguese come into these states and begin to see the wealth that the residents had based upon this international trade, they want to take it for themselves. And so when they return back the second time with cannons blazing, these Swahili city-states are going to have to fend for themselves. They will not have the ability to unify militarily and politically in time for them to present a united front to fend off this aggression at the hands of the Portuguese during the 16th century. As a result, the Portuguese quickly began erecting forts in the southern port cities of Kilwa, Zanzibar, and Sofala to cement their political, military, and now economic control of these lucrative trade routes across the Indian Ocean. I wish I could say that this represented the end of European incursions to the continent of Africa and the end of European aggression and domination of native African peoples. Unfortunately, this is just the opening act. Much later in the class, as we move forward in time chronologically, we're going to talk about the 19th century and the so-called scramble for Africa, where even more European powers will descend upon the continent in a bid to secure the economic resources there and force the peoples there into political subjugation.